Okay then, are we live? This should be entertaining because it's the first time I've tried doing a live stream on Instagram at the same time as I'm doing a live stream on YouTube. Two different camera angles should be fun to see how it goes. Somebody once said, what could possibly go right? Okay, thought I'd kick off. Kind of what's been going on. Been shooting a few videos today, but that's all stuff that's to be published. I thought I'd kind of show you what's been going on with the pics. Got a few works in progress here. My box of goodies. So yeah, a few pics I've been working on. This is one, forgetting about two cameras. One for the Instagram people, one for the YouTube people. So that was one I was working on a live stream the other night. As was this one, which HB Guitar over on Instagram took a bit of a shine to, no pun intended, and asked me to make a couple for him. So after in the post to him, I think he received them today. Oh, Plumstone Guitar Picks. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. I'll be talking about you later because I'm going to be talking about that Pic Giveaway that's about. Other things I'm working on, little shield-shaped thing, which is sort of like getting on for like a jazz, so like pick made for picking type of thing, which is in a really nice material called liquid gold. I'm quite taken with the way that one looks. And something I've started messing around with is pick keychains. I had a sort of passing thought about doing something like this a while ago, and then when I was on the what was it? It was a Facebook live stream I was doing last week, and somebody mentioned something about keeping pics on keychains, and I thought, right, I'm going to have a look and see if I can get some decent like keychain clip type things, you know, something you can just put a pic on and have it with you. So a few of those, one in carbon black, one in desert camo brown, and another one in true blood red, which I'm probably going to be getting onto the Etsy shop at some point in the future. What else have I been working? Yeah, it's something I started just as a bit of a project to help myself. I was clearing out after a little project at home and found some polycarbonate and tried making pic-shaped things out of clear polycarbonate. Now, I don't know if this is going to be any good for using for pics. It's kind of brittle, but I know people like the Dunlop big stubbies are kind of a polycarbonate type of material. The main reason I made those, though, so if I just reach over here, is for using as templates. So when I get a piece of material like this for making a pic, if I've got a clear template, it's going to be so much easier to work out where I want to mark that material for making a cut, so I can get a pic that makes the best use of the pattern and the material. So that's my reasoning there. So I think these will be quite useful for me going forward. So I'll pop that over there. On the show tonight, I'm going to be doing a bit of pic making. I've got a custom order came in the other day. Can't remember why. It was I got a message from a guy called Scott who saw he's seen something I posted and said, could you do me a pic in orange? And says, funny you should say that. This is the pic I'm actually playing right now when your message came in. It says, oh, I like that. Could you make me one? So tonight, adventures in pic making. We've got a piece of kyanite that I've marked up using the template that you saw earlier. There it is for the YouTube people. So we're going to be doing a little bit of work on that and just having a bit of a chat because there's some interesting news, not from PhatPhish, but from the Plectraverse in general. So get myself set up. The old board that I like to work from to basically avoid dust from getting absolutely everywhere, as it does, and get started with the big file just to get this down to the basic pic shape. And while I'm doing that, some stuff to talk about with a pic giveaway. Now, I saw something came up on my Instagram feed a few nights ago from JMetalR, who occasionally sits in on these live streams on Instagram. So Hopefully he'll pop in at some time tonight. And Jay Metal had this fantastic idea. He says, I'm going to give away a pic, because he makes some pretty cool pics. And he says, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give away a pic. What I want you to do is put a post on Instagram and say something positive about mental health awareness, something that doesn't get talked about enough. So by way of like an encouragement, an inducement to talk about it, put a post on Instagram, you know, whether it's just a tip for coping with depression, or if it's like a helpline of an online resource you've come across that you want to share, do that, let him know. And once you made the post, he'll put your name in a draw to win this pic, which is a cool idea. Now, I saw that on my feed after we'd updated his original post to say Crow's Customs have picked up on this, and sorry, no pun intended, and they've thrown a rather snazzy looking pic into the giveaway as well. So I thought that's a nice idea. It's an idea I can get behind. So I got in touch with Jay Metal and said, do you want a pic from me? He said, it's funny you should say that, but since I made that original post, we've now got 5 people contributing pics. I think we're up to 6 now. So there's Jay Metal, Crow's Customs, myself, Plumstone, you're definitely giving something, Mark Christopher at Hippie Pics, Dragon Pics, I think, is also contributing, and there maybe one other. But either way, there's quite a generous prize pot now, and I think what Jay Metal is going to do is actually split the prize pot 3 ways. So basically, what you've got to do, like I say, is just make a post on Instagram, something positive in the field of mental health, whether it's like I say, a technique for coping with any issues you might have, resources, helplines, or whatever that you want to share. Let Jay Metal R, which is his Instagram handle, is jmetalr_plectrums. Let him know you've made the post, and you go into the prize draw to win some pics. And I've seen the pics that are on offer, and I must admit, I definitely feel like the poor relation in this because there's some absolutely corking stuff from the other pic makers there. So it's well worth winning. And I say it's a good cause. I say it's something I can get behind, because mental health is one of those things that we don't talk about enough. It's almost like it still has kind of got a bit of a stigma to it, and it shouldn't have. It's not nowadays. You know, Christ, we're well into the 21st century, and we should be able to be open about things like mental health. And hopefully, this little initiative that Jay Metal R is running will encourage people to get talking and keep talking, and sort of like destigmatize the whole thing. Mental health is just an aspect of your overall health. It's no different to physical health. You know, people would have no qualms about they've got asthma, they've got hay fever, they've got arthritis or something like that. They'd be perfectly open about it. But as soon as the issue is something mental, it's like, oh no, it's stigmatized. Shouldn't be talking about that. Don't want to talk about it, and clam up. And that's just bad, because it compounds the problem. Talking about it sometimes can be one of the best things you can do. And if you talk about it, people can be aware you've got an issue, whether it's anxiety, depression, whatever. There's a huge gamut of things fall under the heading of mental health. But if you talk about it, people can kind of understand where you are, and they can make allowances for it. For example, if I, let's say I'm organising a boys' weekend away. So I'm not going to do that now because we're under lockdown. But so organising a trip away and say, I know what we're going to do. We're going to go paintballing. Now, one of my friends happens to have really bad asthma, and the last thing he's going to be able to do is go running around the woods playing paintball. No matter how much good fun it is, he's going to end up having issues and not being able to breathe. But he'd be quite happy to say, don't want to be a party pooper, lads, but I can't do that. I can't go running around. It's a health issue. But people would not have the same openness about talking about a mental health issue, and it shouldn't be like that. So hopefully, this little initiative that JMetalR is doing in its own small way will encourage people to realise that mental health is something that we can talk about, and kind of get the conversation going. I did a very enjoyable interview a little while ago, so I'm just losing my pencil line on this piece of work. I did a very enjoyable interview earlier this year with Matt Gleason from Monty's Guitars, so like guitar tinkerer extraordinaire, really cool guy. And he's a great advocate of mental health, just talking about it. He's really open that he's had issues of his own in the past. So we had quite a wide-ranging discussion. We talked about guitar maintenance and pickups and stories from his life in the guitar trade and the guitar repair business and all that. And kind of got on the subject of mental health because I know he's a big advocate of it. And he said something which kind of I thought was really kind of struck a chord with me. He says, the easiest thing you can do if you've got a mental health issue is just talk about it. Having a conversation is the easiest thing. You don't need any specialist equipment. You don't necessarily have to be talking to a professional. Just talking to a friend or a family member will help. But simultaneously, it's also the hardest thing to do because you almost feel stigmatized about talking about it. I might say you shouldn't. So I would encourage you, if you're watching this, get on Instagram, post something with a positive message about mental health, tag JMetalR_plectrums in your post and let them know. And then you'll be entered into a prize draw to win some rather wazzo picks, like say from the likes of Dragon Picks, Crow's Customs, JMetalR, Plumstone, and anybody else I've forgotten. And one from me, which is for the guys on Instagram, this one, small standard in Cyclone Blue. Yeah. So there you go. I think the giveaway runs till the end of this week. So that's the news about the Pic Giveaway. So just continuing on with this piece of work we've got here. Basically, I've already cut it out roughly with a coping saw. So now I'm just going around with a coarse-ish file, just basically filing it down to the shape of a pick. So this particular one is a clone of that pick of mine. So it's a small standard. Small standard for my range of picks. Basically, if you get on with a Jazz 3 XL or you get on with a big stubby, you'll probably get on with a small standard. It's a smaller, slightly more rounded than a 351 size pick, but still reasonably substantial. It'd be a good general purpose pick, good for picking, and also good for strumming and all that sort of stuff. Material I'm using is, as usual, my picks are made from is Kieranite, and this particular pattern's called Sunspot Orange, which is quite nice. It's like orange and red, and the orange has got quite a nice marbly, translucent sort of pattern to it. So we'll file that down. We're getting there. So just case of always with these things, checking it for shape and symmetry. Don't want it to be slightly misshapen and heavier on one side than the other. You want to be able to pick it up, and whichever side you're playing with, it's the right shape and size. So that's just about getting there now. Keep checking that tip. I think needs a little bit of work. Generally put the final finish on the tip as the last piece. I'll do all the other edging first, but try and get it to the right basic shape before we crack on. Okay, so okay, look, it just needs a little bit more curve on the lighter side. Sometimes this material is a bit awkward to work with because of the pattern. It kind of draws your eye to one side of the piece or to the other, and you kind of, it's a little bit of an optical illusion. Sometimes it looks wonky when it's not, or it looks straight when it is actually slightly on the cant. But I think that's looking pretty good. I like that. So I'm trying to do this to two cameras here. Actually, can I move that camera around slightly? No, I can't. It's never mind. So that's the first process. Just getting it down to the basic shape. What I'm going to do now is basically start putting the playing edge on. So this is going to be a fairly hard beveled edge. So I'm going to go in with the coarse file again, 45 degrees. Just dress that down, nice, following the curve of the pick until I'm basically down to halfway down in depth on the side of the pick, and that basically gives us the start of the playing edge. So this file's a bit coarse, and as I'm getting towards the end, just kind of lightening up a little bit with my strokes with the file. I'll be going over later with a needle file, which is a little bit finer, but that's a good start. So that's one playing edge, and do the same thing on the other side. Again, always looking for symmetry in these things, making sure that we're the same sort of bevel, left hand and right hand side of the pick, and that the pick is coming to a point at the point. I'm going to be rounding the plane tip over at the end, but just kind of working it to a precise point for now. Aha, Mark, Christopher from Hippie Pics, good to see you. I've just been telling everybody about the Pic Giveaway that J Metal R's organised, that you're going to be contributing some pics to. So hopefully J Metal R's getting a good response to that, because you must be getting a few entries, because I saw something where he's talking about actually splitting the prize pot up and being able to split it 3 ways, which is cool. What am I drinking? This is, I don't think you have this in the States. This is just, we call it orange squash, just so like diluted orange juice. I was watching somehow got sucked into watching videos on YouTube the other day, and it was one of these differences between the UK and the US, and things that the people in the UK just take for granted, and people in the US just don't understand. And one thing we have over here is orange squash. In the States, apparently that's not really a thing. Okay, so this pick I'm doing tonight, for anybody who's just joining on YouTube or on Insta, this is one I'm doing as a custom order. Somebody on Instagram saw a post that I did the other day and got in touch, was wanting a particular pick. So tonight I'm working on this one for him. So now it's still at the coarse file, just to get a good playing edge onto things. So yeah, I've got my I've got my phone doing the Instagram feed, and it's a bit of an angle, and I wear very focal lenses, so it's a little bit of a struggle to read the comments here. Saying we need to set up a time so that I can interview you. Oh yeah, that would be really, really cool. I'd definitely be interested in doing that. I was doing some interviews for my own YouTube channel, and had a few lined up, which for one reason or another fell through, and I kind of got out of the habit of doing interviews. But yeah, being on the other end of the interview process, that would be cool. So yeah, drop me. I'll forget about it. So if you drop me a message on Instagram as a so it'll remind me, I'll we'll sort something out. Because I'm not sure. I know you're over in the States, but I'm rubbish at recognizing stateside accents. Whereabouts in the States are you? Are you East Coast, West Coast, somewhere in the middle? I don't know. Certainly, if you're over the East, the time difference between us isn't too bad. Okay, let's go around now and get the top contour onto this pic. You're Eastish. Oh, that's cool. I've got a friend lives in Ohio who I kind of keep in touch with on Facebook. Peter's Facebook live streams that I check in on. I think it's about like 5 hour time difference, which isn't too bad. It's not like you're working 12 hours out of sync or something like that, which can be a bit hairy. Oh, you're in Kentucky, right beside Ohio. Yeah, I've got a reasonable-ish sense of geography of the states, but it's not brilliant. But yeah, I kind of know roughly which quarter of the country you're talking about, anyway. Now, this file always feels a little bit oversized for a job like this. I keep promising myself I should get something a bit more compact and ergonomic. But actually, the more I use it, the more I'm kind of getting comfortable with it, and I can't imagine using anything smaller. It's actually quite a nice tool for the job. It takes off just the right amount of material. For just doing like some basic shaping, and then I can go in with a needle file and kind of dress things a little bit finer. How long does it take me to make a pic? I'm getting more proficient and consistent now. Generally, it's about an hour, because I do the marking up and cutting out by hand. Which generally, I'm sort of measuring myself by live streams. Actually, I was cutting them out, coming on a live stream. I could get a pic shaped and finished and through to final polish within the 1 hour time limit on an Instagram live stream. So probably about 1 hour to 1 hour 10 total working time. So it's not exactly mass production. Funny, I got a message the other day. Somebody sent me a direct message and said, "Oh, I like the a particular pic that he'd seen me posting on Instagram. I'd be interested in getting some of those. How much would you charge for a batch of 100?" I said, "Well, I'm flattered that you'd like to buy 100 of my pics, but to be honest, I'm just not not in a position to make hundreds of them. This is all done by hand. I'd be working full time to the exclusion of everybody else to churn out a batch of 100 therapeutic. Just sit here, generally I listen to music or podcasts, or if I just, haven't kind of chatted to many people during the day, fire up a live stream on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, just have a bit of a general chat. I enjoy showing the process, because sometimes people think, why should I be paying, pounds and pounds or dollars and dollars? Okay, see you there. See you, Hippie Pics. I'll drop you that message. People say, why should I be paying pounds and dollars for a pic? And it's because there's a lot of hand work goes into it, and that's what kind of trying to show on a stream like this is the amount of work that goes into this. So I'm just trying to. I've got a YouTube stream running on my laptop and a few other bits and bobs going on, so I'm just trying to multitask. Insta Live and YouTube Live and Facebook stuff. Okay, close that. Okay, so this is starting to come together now. I've got bevels all the way around. Not particularly well matched. I need to take a bit more off on this side. So again, it's all about making sure it's symmetrical, making sure that all the curves, it's all nice smooth curves. Every bit of contouring transitions into every other bit of contouring. No hard edges, no hard, really noticeable transitions. Okay, so there we go. That's beveled all the way around now and looking good. A nice rounded profile at the top. Just need to square the tip off. I'm just going to go around with a needle file, something slightly smaller, and just basically run over all the surfaces that I've been filing with the big file and just get any coarse file marks off so it's in a position ready to start sanding. What I don't want to do is get into sanding, or worse still, get into final polishing and realize that I've got some scratches left from the file which are going to leave unsightly marks, and then having to go back to the file and then work my way through filing and sanding and all the grits to final polish again. It's counterproductive and takes up time, and it gets a bit demoralizing, so it's worth spending a bit of time just making sure that everything's kind of right at each stage. And also, as I'm going over with the needle file, I'm just kind of finessing the contour, particularly at the top. So it's a fairly hard bevel over the playing surface, but at the top of the pick, I want something a bit more smooth, organic, ergonomic sort of feel. So rather than go a straight action with the needle file, what I can do is just kind of take it over at a bit of a curving motion, and that just makes things a little bit smoother and nicer feeling. Okay, so yeah, if I leave any marks, what happens is they tend to fill up with dust from the sanding process, and they just show up as like white streaks or white blemishes on the finished pick when it's been polished. Now, they don't affect the playing experience one bit. They're purely cosmetic, but they shouldn't be there. If I'm trying to make a high-end, trying to make a boutique pick here, if I'm doing something like that, I shouldn't be doing sloppy things like leaving little white blemishes when they can be avoided by just taking care in the filing and sanding process. Okay, so that's passed through with the needle file, and just checking everything's symmetrical. Point needs a little bit of work, but I will be coming back to that. Transition between the two sides there could be better, so I'll just finesse that with the file. Actually, the same on the other side. Certainly where the transition goes from the playing edge to the top curve. I haven't handled the transition between the two very well. So just take a little bit of extra material off to smooth that out. Okay. So this is why it's time consuming. This is why it takes an hour or so to make a pic, because it's not all just done on an automated, with power tools or anything like that. Somebody did suggest to me I could probably do a lot of this with a bench sander, but to be honest, the amount of noise that a bench sander makes and the fact that I often work a little bit later at night, I don't think I'd be getting on very well with my neighbours who are firing up a bench sander. The pic manufacturer late at night. Okay, that's not looking too bad. I know I've been around with the needle file. I'm going to go back to the course file, basically just to put the tip on. So this one, it's going to be a rounded tip profile, so a nice smooth transition from one playing surface side to the other, and a slightly sharp, like semi-sharp tip. So nice and precise, but not, as sometimes I say, we're making a pic, not an offensive weapon. So I'll blunt the tip of the pic slightly. So well, this will show up on the camera. What we've got in here now is a nice smooth, rounded transition from the two sides. I suppose what we've got on where we started from, where you got that side and that side. So in this case, what we're doing is just taking the pic, just rounding it over from one side and on the other side, following the playing edge, and then just moving off and rounding over, and getting rid of any bevel between the two sides of the pic. So we've got a rounded tip between the two playing surfaces, and in doing so, that kind of takes some of the material off the tip, and just kind of makes that slightly less sharp than it was. So just checking there again that I'm taking the same amount off front and back, so that the tip profile is like bang in the center of the pic, which it is. So just get rid of any file marks. A quick pass over with the smaller finer one. Okay, that's looking quite good. It's a little bit more rounded than I would like, so I'll just dress that to a little bit more of a point. This is a case of striking the balance between a nice round, smooth, ergonomic, organic transition between the playing edges, but still having a reasonably sharp playing tip. And I think we're there. So before I go any further, I'm just going to take this board off to one side and put all of that powder into the bin. It does create an awful lot of dust, this process. And now we'll move on to sanding. So starting off, these are just tiny little scraps of sandpaper generally, but they fit my hand quite well. I find them quite comfortable to work with. So starting off with sandpaper at 240 grit. And I'm going to go around all of the edges of the pick, playing edge, the curve at the top. Just going through 240 grit, reasonably coarse for a job like this. So as well as smoothing off and getting rid of blemishes from the file, any file marks, it also takes a little bit of material off, so it sort of finesses the shape of the pick and kind of gives you nice smooth edges. So something a little bit more soft and subtle than you can get just with a file. Which is cool. This is a stage I quite like because even with a 240 grit paper, which is for woodworking, 240 grit is actually quite a soft, quite a smooth, fine grain grit. But for this job, it's actually the coarsest that I use. But what that allows me to do is to start feeling something under my fingers, which is it's smooth. It felt smooth with the file, but that first pass through with the sandpaper, and now I've got something that my fingers are telling me that is a nicely finished edge. Yeah, I'm liking the way that feels. Certainly big contrast with the other side. So same thing again, just using my thumb kind of as a tool to hold the sandpaper, rubbing along all of the edges, getting rid of the file marks, subtly shaping the edge of the pick. As I'm doing this, it kicks up quite a little bit of fine dust, so if there are any blemishes left behind from the filing process, any file marks or whatever, and what you see is little dust collecting in those scratches from the file. They'll make themselves a little bit more obvious. So I can give those areas a little bit more attention and get those marks sanded out sooner rather than later. It's like I say, it's better to catch them early on rather than getting to a later stage and then realizing you missed something and then having to go back to the coarse sandpaper. Okay. How's that looking? Yeah, it's not too bad. So looking at it visually, and again, just with the fingers, just feeling for any rough edges. That feels pretty good. So that's 240 grit sandpaper. And move on now to 600 grit. So this is wet and dry paper, but I'm using it dry, so it's effectively it's doing the same job as sandpaper. So 600 grit is so the coarsest wet and dry that I've got, and we'll just basically go through same process, just sanding with this, mostly smoothing out, but there's a little bit of shaping. 600 grit's still got enough coarseness to it that it'll take a bit of material off and finesse the shape of the pick a little bit. 10th fret guitar, hello, thanks for joining. So that's one pass through there with 600 grit. And again, as I'm doing this, just keeping my eyes peeled for any little white marks along the edges that will be telltale signs of little scratches left from filing. It's filling up with dust and they need to be sanded out, but that's looking pretty good. So I'll go from that tiny little scrap of 600 grit to a tiny little scrap of 1200 grit. Well, by the time we'll get to 1200, it's getting much more towards it's a polishing process rather than it's a shaping process. 1200 grit's not particularly coarse, so it's not going to take a whole lot of material off. But what it is doing is kind of getting rid of the really, really fine scratches from the earlier grits, and it's moving more towards being a polished edge. You know, if you just go straight into polishing from something like 600 grit, you'll be polishing forever. You kind of need to go through the grit. So we'll go from 240 to 600, 1200 that I'm working with now, then 1500 grit, 2000, and then go in and apply some polish. So that's all those edges done. 1200, slightly larger scrap. 1500. Like I say, I know this looks really unprofessional, but I find it's just little pieces like this just kind of fit my finger and thumb really well, and feel quite comfortable to use as a tool for shaping and polishing. Go around and do the other side. See how we're doing for time. I think I've been on for about, looking at the clock on the YouTube live stream there. I've got a clock on Instagram. YouTube saying I've been on for about 41 minutes, but I was chatting a bit at the start, so I think we're probably looking at about half an hour's working time so far on this. Like I said, it's a little bit labor intensive. Again, looking good, no signs of scratches. I'm happy with that. Take a little bit more off here. And then final bit is 2000 grit. So this is as fine as I go with the sandpaper, or with in this case it's wet and dry paper. You can get finer sandpaper than the finer wet and dry paper than this, but I find 2000 is enough to get me to a stage where I can polish. You know, I could probably sand finer, take it to like 4000 grit or something, but I don't actually need to spend a massive amount of time with polish once I've gone down to 2000 grit. So, you know, spending more time with finer grits of paper wouldn't actually give me any time advantage. So, okay, so that's all of the edges done with the abrasives. What I'm going to do now is concentrate on the face of the pic. So this has actually got quite a few marks on. So the YouTube camera can see a few marks on it just from where the piece of material was cut out from a larger block. So what I'm going to do now, I've got some sheets of sandpaper. And I don't mind suffering for my art, but there's limits, you know what I mean? Okay, so moving that, try to keep it in a fairly random motion, because if you just move like straight forward, like forward and back, you end up with a pattern that's actually harder to, like, you end up with scratch marks from the sandpaper that are harder to get rid of. So just scrape the dust off there. Yeah, the big scratches are on the way out now. So once I've done that with the 240, I'll just kind of repeat the process with the finer grains of grits of sandpaper. So we're now on to 600. So I'm quite enjoying doing this tonight and actually creating something. I spent a bit of time in the studio today shooting videos for the YouTube channel, doing some tutorials. Basically, because I shot one the other day, and when I came to edit it, I realized that the guitar audio for some reason was all kind of distorted. And I don't understand why. It was all clipped. It wasn't super loud, but something had happened in the recording process. All the guitar audio had clipped and it sounded rubbish. So I spent some time this afternoon reshooting that. And then when I came to edit it this afternoon, it turned out that my microphone hadn't been working, so the guitar sounded great this time, but my vocals were rubbish. Lots of noise. I think I had a dodgy microphone cable. So it's like trying to salvage the audio from the camera. down to 1500 grit to try and get something that works. Because I didn't particularly want to have to shoot that video a third time. And the camera audio actually is not too bad, but it just felt a bit like one step forward, one step back. So being able to sit down at the workbench tonight and do a pic, it's nice because I get something physical and material to show for my efforts. And then I can put it in an envelope and send it off to the gentleman who ordered it from me. Okay, so that's the sanding done. Looking good. A few scratches. That could be better, actually. I'm going to go back to 12. Oh, geez. I'm going to go back again. There's some scratches there I should have got rid of. It's looking quite... Yeah, it's the deeper ones from where the block was sawn, and I'm not really seeing them until I'm going to a finer grit. It's a bit frustrating. So this is another one of the reasons why this sometimes takes an hour plus, because there's a little bit of reworking needed sometimes. Okay, I think that's okay. But I said that last time, and it wasn't. Let's hope it is okay this time. So that's password 600, 1200 grit. Nearly there. I'll do 1500 grit. Looking at that, I'm not sure if that's a scratch. I think it's actually in the material itself. 2000 grit, so that gets it to a stage where it's ready for the final polish. So let's put the sandpaper to one side, get myself a quick drink, and the final polish I'm going to be using, polishing of material of choice, is Halford's rubbing compound. This is from Halford's, a UK chain store for like automotive supplies, things for maintaining your car, repairing your car, whatever. And what this material is intended for is like polishing car paint work after bodywork repairs. So basically, it's just like a cream. It looks a bit like toothpaste. I sometimes wonder if I could actually get away with using this cheap toothpaste for a job like this, because basically what I want is it's doing. It's an abrasive material, and as I put it on the cloth and rub it backwards and forwards, it gets rid of any fine scratches from the earlier sanding process and brings it up to a nice shine. So this is all basically just elbow grease to get this working. So the rubbing compound is not too bad. I started using this because I was using a product called Silvo, which is it's like a metal polish. It's quite watery, full of little microscopic particles, and you do the same sort of thing. You put it on a cloth and rub it against the material, and it brings it up to a fine polish. But my Silvo ran out, and the next best thing I could find was Brasso, which is similar to T-Cut. But the problem I've got with Brasso and the problem I've got with T-Cut is they absolutely stink. It's like a solvent, like petrol-based sort of liquid that they're based on, and it just gives me a starting headache. So the rubbing compound is actually quite nice. It's got a bit of a chemical smell to it, but it's not too bad. And it doesn't need a whole lot of work. You can see the amount of time I'm spending on any given surface here, but it just kind of brings it up to that final shine. And this is the most satisfying part of the process, because this is where you get to a final polish. It's a bit like when you're doing woodworking and you varnish a piece of wood and you see the grain pop, and you realize all the work that you put into that piece of woodworking. This is where you get the reward. You get something that looks nice and shiny. And it's similar with this. Basically, all I've been doing is putting scratches of diminishing sizes into the plastic for the last hour. And this final 5 minutes or so is basically going around and removing all the scratches and bringing it up to a nice final shine so that the pick looks really cool. And you're going to want to play guitar with it. And the Kivonite material this is made of, this kind of Kivonite, it's a type of acrylic. It's a strange material in that it's actually quite grippy. So even with a high shine, with a polish like this, so I'm not putting a polish onto the plastic. The polishing material is just basically removing scratches from it. But once it's got that shine on, it's actually still quite grippy. So even with your hands, your hands quite sweaty because you've been playing guitar for a long time, it's still reasonably easy to keep a good grip on the pick. I know some people have a few problems even then, which is why I do a few models of pick which have got grip holes drilled in them or something like that, through holes to give you something extra to grip onto. But generally speaking, just the material on its own is plenty grippy enough. Okay, so nearly there, done both surfaces, front and back. So I'm just doing one of the playing edges on this side, around the top. So my computer that's running the YouTube session seems to be doing a thing. No, it's still working. Touch wood. And final pass through on the top of the pick. And the final playing edge. So this is just elbow grease, getting that rubbing compound to just take out the last few scratches. Leaves a little bit of dust and whatnot behind. Really, really fine powder. So over here, sorry, knocking the camera for the YouTube audience. I've just got a little bowl of water. Just going to sloosh the pick in that bowl of water and dry it off so you can see it in all its glory. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. There is a small standard pick in Sunspot Orange. It's a semi-sharp tip, hard bevel edge, and a rounded tip profile. That is going off to a gentleman who ordered it from me as a custom order yesterday, I think it was. So if you're watching, there you go. That's your pick. I'll be getting that in the post to you. Okay, thanks everybody for joining on Instagram and on YouTube. Great to have your company. Hope you enjoyed that. Just to go back to what I was saying at the start of the stream, that pick giveaway that's going on over on Instagram. You go and check out jmetalr_plectrums on Instagram. A lot of people giving away picks. I'm giving one of my picks away. There's a whole bunch of people who make far better picks than I do, are also contributing. All you've got to do is make a post saying something positive about mental health. We need to get a good positive discussion going about that. Let jmetalr_plectrums know that you made your post, and your name goes into a draw to win some picks from jmetalr_plectrums himself, Crows Customs, Hippie Picks, Plumstone, Dragon Picks, myself. This is the pick that I'm going to be giving away, and hopefully we can do something positive to raise a bit of awareness for mental health. Thanks everybody for joining me, and I'll see you in another stream sometime soon. Farewell. Bye.